Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story is a historical drama inspired by the love between Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz and King George III of England. The story is well written, and the show is created by Shonda Rhimes. It depicts how the great experiment transcended races and brought trailblazing societal changes. The series aired on May 4th and has 6 episodes. Although the first 3 episodes might be slow, but trust me, as the show progresses, you will fall in love with it by its last episode. Each episode has a revolutionary message, and you will get to listen to every character's side of the story. This video contains spoilers, so it might ruin the fun if you haven't watched the show yet. The show starts and we see Charlotte, a 17-year-old young lady. She is signed off to marry the King of England. She is not happy about the marriage. Becoming a queen seems more of an injustice to her than a fairy tale. After reaching England and hearing Princess Augusta's racial remarks, her vexation is beyond explainable. But the deal between her brother, Prince Adolphus, and the royals has been struck, and they can't go back. The royal family is in dire need of an heir, and they must make this marriage a success. To avoid any ethnic conflict, Princess Augusta invites honorable guests of the Queen's ethnicity and gives them royal titles. However, Charlotte tries to escape the palace when she is not given any details about her husband-to-be. But she would soon change her mind after a lovely conversation she has with the king unknowingly. The lavishing ceremony goes well, and Charlotte has new hopes now. The expectations will soon be shattered when George shouts at Charlotte and refuses to stay in the same house he gifted her. The young girl feels betrayed. Charlotte's honeymoon bliss is nothing but loneliness and anger. She is not allowed to socialize or attend any events. Instead, she dresses up for no one 3 times a day and eats lonely meals. She tries to get an answer from the king, but they end up getting into an argument. The marriage is not going well, and the king and the queen's respective assistants, Brimsley and Reynolds, can't do anything. Lady Danbury finds that the royal marriage has not been consummated yet. Lady Agatha Danbury is Lord Danbury's wife, and very apparently not happy with her husband. She is a young, beautiful woman, whereas he is very old and not so much of a great man. He takes out his disappointments and anger on Agatha in the form of very displeasing intercourse. Lady Danbury offers to disclose information about the Queen's marriage life to Princess Augusta if her husband is treated the same as the other nobility. The deal is a success, and Lord Danbury is given a new land which he thinks is his own doing instead of his wife's. One night, Charlotte sees George at the dining table, seemingly there to have a meal with her. She is disappointed and walks away. They don't get along well in the beginning, but end up consummating their marriage that night. This gives Charlotte some hope, which is again dispersed in thin air the next morning when she overhears George arguing with his mother. Bits of Queen Charlotte's life in the present are also shown throughout the show. The Queen is struggling to conceive an heir from her offspring. The whole purpose of this marriage is an heir. The newlyweds meet on even days to secure the throne. The sparkly hint of love between the two is nearly absent, but they pretend greatly on the coronation day. Lady Danbury is aware of the dryness between them, but she falsely assures Princess Augusta that all is fine. On coronation day, Brimsley gets the hint that George is unwell. He inquires Reynolds, but to no avail. Brimsley ends up mentioning his suspicions to the Queen. She, in return, asks George, but he assures her that he's well. To signify the mingling of both races, a ball is hosted by the Danburys. To celebrate the success, Lord Danbury initiates another uncomfortable intercourse with his wife, but passes away in the middle of it. This would be Lady Agatha's freedom from wifely responsibilities. That night, George gets out of bed, scribbles on the walls, runs to the garden, and converses with the sky, naked. Charlotte is worried about the king's condition and demands answers, but nothing comes out of Reynolds or Brimsley's mouth. King George's nervous disorder is unleashed. He had been suffering from lunacy ever since he was a kid. Royal burdens and the fear of lacking consumes him, and he has tremors. Despite his condition, he was set off to marry. Monroe, a doctor who specializes in nervous disorders, decides to treat George and ends up harming him more. His ways of treating George are inhumane. The doctor gives George ice-cold baths, burns his skin, and tortures him in the chair, all in the name of treatment. George was helpless at the hands of his illness and stayed away from Charlotte to protect her from himself. After finding comfort in Charlotte's company, George dismisses Dr. Monroe but soon goes back to the torturous therapy after overhearing his wife and mother's conversation. It is also by the time Charlotte is carrying the next king in her womb. In the present timeline, Queen is as lonely as she was in the past. So was Agatha. After her husband's passing, she has a hard time identifying herself. She soon finds comfort in Lord Ledger's company. Lady Agatha is also trying to get her son to succeed in the title of Lord Danbury. Meanwhile, Charlotte is all alone, wanting to leave the palace and England. Her brother visits her. The Queen insists on staying with Lady Agatha. She is hesitant to take responsibility. In the present, the Queen has found spouses for her sons. Finally, some relief for Her Majesty. Charlotte suffers from loneliness while her husband receives painful therapy. She soon finds out about it and takes George back home. George refuses to stay with Charlotte, but it works out when Charlotte stands still. The Queen gives birth in Buckingham Palace, and the love between the King and the Queen seems colorful. Although George struggles here and there, Charlotte has his back. The arrival of the new king is celebrated, and Princess Augusta can't help but admit, Charlotte makes George happy. Just like that, Queen's children succeed in conceiving an heir, too. In the end, George still suffers from lunacy, but Charlotte helps him hide from the heavens under the bed, like she did in the old days. Queen Charlotte is one of the most aesthetically pleasing dramas in recent years. It depicts some great messages. Although it might not be the most historically accurate show, it manages to depict history as close as possible. India Rhea and Corey Melchriest did an applaudable job of characterizing the Queen and the King. Not only does the show focus on the main characters, but pays significant attention to the side characters too. The show is about the strength of women of those times who had led very lonely lives but stayed firm. Charlotte is portrayed to be a rebellious, wise woman who prefers normalcy to royalty. Despite her young age, she helps George rule England and helps him make revolutionary decisions. She also understands George's illness and gives him the love he deserves. Princess Augusta, who is very irritating in the show, has a warm character development by the end. Just like Charlotte and Agatha, Augusta had a fair share of hard times too. She did all she could to protect her son, the heir, and the King of England, George. I loved Agatha's character the most. How she stood still to win her people the social status they deserved was excellent. She dealt with the man she was tied to since she was 3 bravely and funded poor girls as revenge on her husband after he passed. Violet's character adds a base to the story as well. Once you get through the first 3 episodes, the show only gets better. The story is so well written and the production value and the cinematics are so beautiful that it'll become your comfort show. Besides the story, all the royal costumes and places are so dreamy. They're a pleasure to watch indeed. Finally, Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story is a perfect mix of visuals, royalties, love, angst, and revolution. All the characters did their role beautifully, and you can't help but fall in love with each one of them. Thank you for watching till the end. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications to stay updated on awesome series and movies. Until next time,